All right. So, hello and welcome to the Canvas course evaluation series. This is part one where we explore course information in your Canvas account. I am Rosalia DiNardo. I am the assistant director here in the eLearning division at Camden County College. And I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. So let's go ahead and get started. So hopefully everybody can hear me, but for those who cannot, I'm just going to leave this up for a few seconds so that they can read it. And it's always a good thing for those of you that can hear me to just kind of review it in case you ever experience a sound or an audio problem in a future webinar. So I'm just going to give you time to look that over. All right, today's agenda, the first thing that we're going to start with is why are you self-evaluating your course? And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of that. We're going to discuss what is the Canvas course evaluation checklist version 2.0. In the past, we have discussed quality matters, and we're going to compare this Canvas checklist to the quality matters rubric. Then we're going to go into the rating system for the Canvas checklist and the 7 criteria that they have set up for this first part, which again is your course information. Then I'm going to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts and ideas, and then we'll just go over some housekeeping items. So why do we self-evaluate our courses? So as you can imagine, online education represents the fastest growing sector of higher education. And at this time, it accounts for 3/4 of all enrollment increases. Creating online courses, as you imagine, as you've done, is a daunting task. It's complex. There's a lot of components to it. And, you know, I admit when I've done mine, I did mine in 2011 when I first created it, and I'm constantly looking it over and tweaking it because we don't always get it right the first time. Information changes, our subjects evolve, links break, you know, we have to update things. So it's important to go through your class every once in a while and kind of evaluate it for yourself and see what you've done and see what you might need to do in the future. Another important reason is that accrediting bodies have been increasingly adding requirements to maintain status. So as we are going to see, especially after the last couple years where we have seen how things have transitioned even more online, you're going to see a change in accrediting bodies such as middle states and what they've included as requirements. Some of the things that we need to consider when we're tweaking our courses and evaluating them to move forward is to curate course content that supports the diverse needs of learners. You want to implement improvements based on national standards related to online course quality and universal design learning. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And you also want to implement continuous improvements based on best practices. And we'll talk more about when is the best time to actually do that as well in your course. Well-designed courses actually keep students more engaged, not only with each other and with you as the professor, but also with the material. So it's important to look over how you're designing your course. And we're going to talk about the difference also between design and delivery and what we're going to focus on during this series. And that adopting a universal design learning framework greatly improves retention. And if you have not had a chance to attend last week's webinar, we discussed retention and success in online classes, and this you can always go back and view the video in the Faculty Hub. So when is a good time to evaluate your class? Well, there's actually different times for it and different levels of evaluation. So the first level of evaluation is what we're going to do during this series is a self-evaluation based on checklists and rubrics provided by different entities. When you get student evaluations in the form of surveys, that's a good time to go over your course. And those surveys should reflect more of the content, the design, the navigation of the course, not necessarily how the student feels about the material, the subject itself, or about you as a professor. Really hone in on how the design and the modality that you used help them throughout the class. Then there's also peer-to-peer evaluations, which occur in Partners in Learning. And as you know, especially the full-time faculty, that's something that you have to do every so many years, where you're partnered with another faculty member to review and evaluate courses. And finally, there's institutional evaluations. Now, I want to be clear that those are available upon request to the eLearning staff only. We do not go into your courses and evaluate them unless you specifically have requested that. And what we would do, whoever you reach out to, we would go through the most likely the Quality Matters rubric and look to see if you have the different components. We would give you feedback, we would offer suggestions, and we would help you then either if you needed to help help in curating material, help in learning new functions so that you can do different things, we would work with you through that. If that's something that you want to do in advance for the next semester, you do have to give us a little bit of notice, because it is something that does take time, not only on our end, but a little bit on your end as well, because if you want to incorporate that feedback, you're going to need time to do that. Another time to evaluate your course is feedback when the class concludes. So you could do this by looking at the analytics in the learning management system. You could do this by the survey responses that you get from your students. And what I do is I also keep notes during the class, so that if I notice that a particular assignment got a lot of questions, I kind of note that down, especially if I'm using a new assignment or a new quiz. Did something, not sit right with the students? Did I not explain something well enough? So that's a good time to evaluate your course. Before you replicate your course for a new semester is a great time to look at your course. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to change the existing course and then replicate it, because then you change the archive of the course. So what you want to do is you want to replicate the course first in the new shell and then make the changes based on the feedback and your self-evaluation. Another good time to self-evaluate is when your textbook has a new edition. That's always a wonderful time. I'm actually in the process of doing that now. When a national standard rubric is updated, so that would, we use Quality Matters here at Camden County College. So that is updated every 2 to 3 years. That is a good time to self-evaluate your class. And also anytime after conferences and professional development, when new practices are discovered, that's also a great time to look at your class and see maybe what you can tweak. And again, when I say that there's different levels of evaluation, you don't have to go in and redo your entire class all at once and try to put all of these components in there. Because again, as we said previously, it's a complex process. And so you might decide, you know what, this semester, I'm just going to concentrate on my orientation session, or I'm just going to concentrate on my discussion boards. And you can break it down like that. That way it doesn't seem to be so overwhelming. So what are you evaluating? So there is a difference between evaluating the course design and evaluating the course delivery. So what these checklists and rubrics really do is to assess the course design, and that is the creation phase of the process. The course delivery is actually the implementation phase. That is where that has anything that deals with you participating in the class with the student. So course delivery is responding to email messages, facilitating discussion boards, grading, giving feedback, anything that promotes your social presence pertains to delivery. But what we're focusing on is the design, and that's throughout the whole series is the design of the course. So this is anything that you can set up before the course begins. This is your course information that we'll cover today, your course content, the alignment of the course modules and module objectives with assessments, and accessibility. So let's look a little closer at the Canvas Course Evaluation Checklist version 2.0. So I thought this was an interesting quote, and it was found in an article, a journal article, that actually evaluated the Canvas checklist. And it says, building a course without quality standards is like building a house without safety and building codes. And I just kind of thought that that was really an interesting quote, and something that I'm going to kind of keep in the back of my mind as I'm working through my course with my new edition of my textbook. And it's something that I hope that you will give some thought to as well. So let's learn a little bit about the checklist that we're going to be using for this series. So Instructure, who is actually the creator of Canvas, first released the first version of the checklist in 2018, and they just revised it this year in January. When they created the checklist, it was created with all Canvas users in mind, and it was intended for audiences K through higher ed. So when they made this checklist, they wanted anybody to be able to use it. So whether you are new to creating a course or you've been teaching online for many years, the checklist could be used by anyone. It's Canvas centric, and when I say that, I mean that there's links to the Canvas guides on the checklist, and I will be providing you a copy of that checklist so that you can utilize those links. It also focuses on universal design learning, and there's also, if there's a certain criteria that fits into the UDL, there will be a link in the checklist for that as well. So the purpose of the Canvas Course Evaluation Checklist is support the majority of the Canvas course creators as they strive to elevate the quality of their Canvas courses. And that's really what we're doing today with the self-evaluation, is just taking your course to the next level possible. And the checklist is designed, as I said, to support a variety of course creators. So whether you're an instructional designer, K through 12, higher ed, this checklist is for everybody. And it even spans over the different modalities, especially since Canvas is used within face-to-face courses as a supplemental tool. The checklist could be used in a face-to-face setting as well. And when they created the checklist, they wanted it to be shared among colleagues who use Canvas. They wanted people to apply the principles to their own course, and again, elevate the quality of your institution's courses. So here's a quote from an actual instructional design team member at Instructure. The checklist doesn't require any formal training to use and is helpful whether you're starting a course from scratch or evaluating a more mature course. It's short, 4 pages. In no way is this tool meant to compete with or replace proprietary evaluations. So this actually brings us into our next section, which I thought was important, about the difference between the Canvas checklist and the Quality Matters rubric. And you'll be able to see the difference in the level of evaluation that they both require. So what is the difference? So the Canvas checklist is just that. It's a very simple checklist, and it's free to all Canvas customers. The Quality Matters rubric has an intricate scoring system, and you have to be a subscriber to Quality Matters in order to use it. The intent of the self-evaluation checklist is to improve your course design, whereas the Quality Matters rubric, it's to determine if you meet the standards that they set forth. Canvas only has one checklist that caters through K to higher ed, while Quality Matters has 6 rubrics that cater to K through 12, higher ed, continuing ed. There's a version for hybrid courses and so on. And again, you have to be subscribed to a particular, what's the word I'm looking for, a particular section of Quality Matters. So we can only access the higher ed rubric. The Canvas course checklist is a 3-star system where the Quality Matters rubric is a 3-point system. For the checklist, your goal is to have all foundational and essential criteria met. And there are 4 categories and 38 criteria. In Quality Matters, the rubric adds up to 100 points, and you have to achieve an 85% of the 8 standards and 42 substandards in order to be considered a quality course. The Canvas checklist is tailored to the Canvas LMS, while the Quality Matters rubric is tailored to all learning management systems. So the Canvas checklist will actually show you or link you to the guide on how to add something or change something within your course, where the Quality Matters rubric will tell you that you should do it, but it can't tell you how to do it because it caters to all the learning management systems. As far as the Canvas checklist is concerned, the ultimate goal is to increase the quality of your course and elevate student learning. It's a less daunting checklist, and it has clearer verbiage. And as I mentioned, it links to the Canvas course guides. Now, with Quality Matters, your ultimate goal is to obtain a Quality Matters seal of approval, which is something that we discussed in the Quality Matters series last year, which is also available in the Faculty Hub. And you can learn more by viewing that or by contacting me separately. The Quality Matters rubric is more daunting and the verbiage is less clear. And peer reviewers actually take extensive courses to evaluate using the rubric. And we here in eLearning have taken the 2-week course and have, the annotated rubrics with examples and how to analyze a course. So it's not something that is as easy to go over for a quick self-evaluation as the Canvas checklist. So let's talk about how the rating system works in the Canvas checklist. So as I mentioned, it is a 3-star rating system. If something has 1 star, it means that it's essential to the standard course design of the class. And there are 25 essential elements listed on the checklist. If something has 2 stars, it's considered a best practice and it adds value to the course. And there are 8 of those on the checklist. If something has 3 stars, it's considered exemplary because it elevates learning. And there are 5 of those elements on the checklist. Now let's take a look at the criteria that fit into the Part 1 course information. So 1.1 refers to the home page. So you want to make sure that your home page provides a visual representation of the course, a brief course description or introduction, clear instructions for the students, such as where to begin, and a quick and easy navigation to current content. So as you can see, this is a 1 star, so it's essential. And it's also one of the foundational items, meaning that it's something that should definitely be included in the creation of an online course because it builds the foundation of the course design. So one of the things here that springs to mind when you're doing your homepage is the navigation pane to the left. And one of the things that I notice that a majority of instructors do not do is clean up the navigation pane. So when students go onto their course shell, there is so much to click on, and so many of those tabs either do not have any impact on the course, or I find that instructors leave, say, the discussion board tab there open, the files tab, the assignments tab. So instead of navigating through the modules that like a student should do, they're actually clicking directly onto the discussion board tab and not following the course in the intent that you really built it to be followed. So that's just something that when you're doing your self-evaluation, that's one of the many things that you could check for to see, have I cleaned up the navigation tab? When it says that it wants a visual representation of the course, a lot of times I find that professors will put a picture of the textbook to show the, the subject, or they might find a photograph that actually depicts what the subject is. And that is always a good idea to put on your homepage. And then of course, a brief description of the course, which can be copied and pasted from the academic guides so that you don't have to rewrite it. And I always find that an introduction of yourself is a wonderful thing to have in your course. And as a matter of fact, in the last webinar, we were discussing that one video of the professor in a course could actually increase retention by 11%. So that's something to consider as you're evaluating your homepage. So you want to make sure that the navigation, the course navigation, is clear and consistent. And I actually jumped the gun on the homepage and talked about the navigation pane. So you want to make sure that unused items are hidden, and it's very easy to do. And the checklist will point you to the Canvas guide if you don't know how to do that. This is also an essential item, and it's foundational to the design of the course. 1.3 is key learning information. So as an instructor, you want to provide key learning information such as goals, learning objectives, and/or standards, as well as course materials, supplemental textbooks, and reading lists. So this is usually something that we put in our first day handout for the students. And I like to put what the goals are for the class, what my expectations are, whether it's regarding how I want them to behave, because even though it's a virtual environment, there should still be quote unquote classroom policies. I put the overall objectives for the course. And then of course, in the modules themselves, there will be module objectives for the students as well. As far as supplemental textbooks go, we all know that the cost of textbooks is outrageous, and I generally don't myself offer a supplemental textbook. I used to ask the students, or not ask them to, but if they wanted to, get a citation book, a citation manual, and I put that down as optional, but I do sometimes offer optional videos for them in my class to watch instead of optional reading lists. So that's something also for you to consider. 1.4 on the checklist is about class expectations, policies, and requirements. So as an instructor, you want to give the students your expectations, your whether it's about participation, etiquette, or in this case, we would call it netiquette, and your code of conduct, your policies for grading, late work, makeup work, and technology requirements. So again, this is still a classroom, and students have to still behave a certain way, especially if we are asking them maybe to submit something in a public area, such as a discussion board, or maybe if you have a synchronous component and video is required. You want to make sure that you are clearly defining these elements. So as far as the code of conduct, you can actually link to the student handbook the pages on academic honesty and things of that nature. Your policies for grading, whether it's some type of rubric, is always very helpful. And your technology requirements, even if they need just the most basic of skills, you can include that as well in your requirements section. 1.5 is your contact information, and I know this kind of seems like a given, but just in case it's not, we ask that you provide contact information to your online students. It doesn't have to include a biography, but a biography or some type of personal greeting, again, is always helpful and appreciated by the students. Your availability information, whether it's by appointment or if you have actual office hours, and how they can reach you to set that up. Your communication preferences. So if you are solely using Canvas, maybe you want students to just contact you using the Canvas inbox, and you would want to specify that. In the previous webinar, we discussed contact information and what you should and should not provide. And we do discourage you from providing students with cell phone numbers, home phone numbers, and personal email addresses. And if you do want to contact a student via the phone, it's always a best practice to let them know that it will come up from a blocked number if you're not on campus, and block the phone call. You want to let students know your response time. So when I give my students my response time, I give them a response time for Monday through Friday, and then I give them a separate response time for the weekend, because sometimes I'm not always on my computer as frequently on the weekend. And a picture of yourself or your pet or something like that is always helpful. This element is considered foundational and essential to the course design. 1.6 is your course card. The course card provides a visual representation of the subject by adding an image in the course settings. And if you don't know how to do this, again, the checklist will link you to it. This is a 1-star, so it is considered essential to the course design, but it's not, as you can see, it does not have the foundational mark that we had represented in the first 5 slides. So it's something that's nice to have. It's something that kind of, helps the students relate a little bit to the subject, but it's not, foundational. Our final criteria for course information is the institutional resources. So you want to make sure that your course contains information and links to institutional resources such as the library, and any services that we might offer, like tutoring or disability services, and a link to the school's website. So one of the things I found helpful is, instead of writing up this section in my actual syllabus and updating all of the information for these different departments every semester, is using the orientation module to make one section as institutional resources, and in that section provide a link to each of them. So a student could then click on institutional resources and say, I need tutoring for the subject, and tutoring would be listed with a link. And then they could go directly to the source. It's updated every semester by the actual department, and it's one less thing that I have to worry about tweaking each time. Okay, so I've kind of given you a lot of information to absorb in these 7 criteria for the first part of our series. So let's take a moment. Let's hear from you. So what I want is, if you want to share an example of how you provide course information in your course shell, you could go ahead, and there is a chat box. I thought there was going to be a Q&A panel, but there is a chat box that you can write your example in. Or if you would like to talk, if you have a microphone, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So what I'm going to do is, while you are considering what you might want to share or typing in your share, I'm going to go ahead and start looking through some of our housekeeping items. Well, and of course, if you don't want to share, but you have a question on something that I have mentioned, you can also put that in the chat panel as well. So here's my section of odds and ends, and I kind of like this little cartoon. If you don't know where something belongs, it belongs in this drawer, which I think everyone has this drawer in their house. I have it. It's in my kitchen next to my trash can, and every once in a while you kind of go through it and see what kind of ended up in there. So our first odds and ends is discussing what we can do for you here in eLearning. So Canvas Learning Management System is a big part of what we do at Camden County College. It has infiltrated all of our modalities, including face-to-face. So if you are using it as a supplemental tool, or you are just using it for grading right now, but want to use it more as a supplemental tool in a face-to-face class, we can certainly walk you through on how to do that. If you are interested in creating a new class, we can help you and work through creating a new class with you. If you want, using either the Canvas checklist or the Quality Matters rubric. And if you have an existing class and want to enhance it and want us to look it over, as we discussed about institutional evaluations, we can certainly do that for you as well. So there are many means of support available as an instructor. You can contact Canvas directly from your Canvas account. You can use the search guides. You can speak with them on their hotline. And my favorite is the live chat, where you can speak with a representative and get a copy of the transcript. And if they've provided you with any links or videos, that comes through on the transcript, and then you can save it so that you can refer back to it later. The great thing about Canvas is they are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. Now, that being said, you can also contact the eLearning division. On the screen, you will see our shared email address and our shared division phone number. What's nice about that is if you're not sure who to call, or, if you were to usually call one of us and maybe we were in a meeting or out of the office and you didn't get us, by calling or using the shared email, somebody is guaranteed to answer and respond right away. In eLearning, we are here Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And in the summer, we're here Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5 p.m. And here we are. So if you haven't stopped by the eLearning division, here we all are. We have Dr. Patrick Chad, our Associate Dean. I am in the second picture, the Assistant Director. And we also have Ginny McGee, our Instructional Designer, and Rich Cummings, our Program Technician, who has, been with us for several months. But if you haven't met him, feel free to pop on in to the suite and meet Rich and just, say hello to the rest of us. So as far as upcoming professional development is concerned, we have a lot going on in eLearning. Now, as you can see, we have the Canvas course evaluation series, and I have part 1 crossed off because you're already completing that today. But there are 3 more parts to go, and I hope that you can take the time out to join us. If not, these webinars are recorded for posterity and put in the Faculty Hub. But we also have a lot going on in November and December. And as you can see, we have some stuff coming around in January already as well. And there's so much more to come. So keep an eye out for your Canvas announcements and Canvas emails, where we will let you know what's going on and how to register for a spot. Here are the references that I used for today's presentation. If you want a copy of the slide deck from today's webinar, I am certainly happy to send that to you as well. Nobody has raised their hand or put anything in the chat. I know a lot of today's information was kind of a given. It's stuff that you probably already do, so I can certainly see why there's not a lot of conversation at this point. So what I'm going to do is I am going to thank you once again for joining me this afternoon and taking the time out of your day. And if you find after the presentation is over that you did have a question or comment, you could go ahead and email me or call me, and I would be happy to discuss it with you. So thank you again. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful afternoon.